Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to another episode of Ask the Alima with me, your host, Alima Naeema. I'm really excited to talk to you about a topic today which is often misunderstood in many cultures, and it is a really important one because it's about the rights of a woman before getting married. I want to talk to you all today about the important topic of meher, a woman's dowry. Before we get started, if there are any questions, feel free to WhatsApp us on the number that is on the screen, 07585 835 150. Your questions will remain anonymous, but it's a great chance for you guys to be a part of this conversation today. And feel free to call in and be a part of the conversation live on the number that is on screen too. Do make sure you have your bill payer's permission. But let's get started, inshallah. So what is meher? Okay, meher is a dowry. It is a wedding gift. The dowry which is given to a woman by a man, something that a woman gets to decide herself, and it's not down to her family or her husband on what that figure is. Okay, so often the dowry most of the time it's money, it could be jewelry, something of value that is given to the woman. In some cultures, women are giving the dowry to the man, and that is incorrect. A woman does not need to give anything to her husband before getting married. He is meant to be giving to her something that she has chosen, whatever it is. If it's money, something that she's happy with, and something that he can give to her. This is her God-given right, and it's a token of honor to the woman. In the Quran, the meher has been mentioned. It says in Surah Nisa, and give to the women who you marry their meher, which is the obligatory bridal money or whatever that is, by the husband to his wife at the time of marriage with a good heart. Okay, so just something to point out here. It says with a good heart. A lot of the times when it comes to the topic of marriage or people discussing what the meher is going to be, there happens to be a lot of heated conversations of, oh, this is too much, or this is too high, I can't afford this, or why is she asking for so much? And it gets a little bit heated, unfortunately. But the Quran specifically mentions with a good heart, with goodness. So the meher shouldn't be something which is burdensome on the couple or gets them started into their marriage with a rocky start, with all this heaviness and this pressure. Okay, so the meher is simply a gift that the woman gets to choose, something that she gets to stipulate right from the beginning. Okay, there are a few things I want to clarify on this, talking about the figure of what meher should be, what it shouldn't be, how we should have our mindsets from the beginning about the topic of meher as well. So this does not mean that a woman is a product to be sold, because I know sometimes some people think that they're handing over the woman and then she's getting money in return for it. And rather, it's a symbol of honor, it's a symbol of respect, and it's a sign that the husband is willing to shoulder his responsibility and fulfill his duties. So I hope that clarifies everything, because I don't want it to be that we're thinking of meher as something that, I will hand over my daughter to you and you will give her money for that. It's not like that. Allah has placed the meher there as a sign of honor to the woman, as a sign that we should respect her, as a sign to say that the man is going to treat her well and give her her rights, and he's giving her this gift as a sign of goodwill. Okay, yes, it is compulsory. He does need to give it, and there needs to be an amount that he gives. But again, I will talk about that too. So, like I mentioned earlier, the man needs to give this to the woman. The woman does not need to give anything to the husband. So in some cultures, the woman needs to give things to the man and his family. And then when families are, they give birth to daughters, they see them as a burden. Astaghfirullah, like they see these children, these daughters as, oh, this is a burden upon me because I'm going to have to give meher for all these daughters. No, Islam, that is not something that is from Islam at all. That could be a cultural thing, but again, that is not correct. It is not part of Islam, and it's very important to understand that, because in some cultures, they do have this thing that when the daughter is getting married, then she has to furnish the home of the house that she's going to be living in. This isn't correct. There's no Islam in this, and then they when she doesn't do that, or if she can't afford to do that, they see her and her family as though they have bad akhlaq. And the women and the family feel so much pressure to go in and furnish their homes and give this much money to the family that she's going to be living in. No, This isn't correct. This is not Islam. Okay. There's also this narrative that is pushed, and unfortunately, it's pushed, and it's almost like it makes the woman feel bad if she asks for a large amount of mahr, a big sum of mahr. And it's like as though if she asks for a very small amount of mahr, then that means she's close to Allah. She's a very pious woman. MashaAllah, she's asking for a small sum of money. That must mean she's a very good woman. She's a very pious woman. This isn't necessarily the case, because at the end of the day, this mahr that is given to a woman is her God-given right. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Should it have been that if she asked for a small amount, then that means she's closer to Allah, then Allah wouldn't have given her this right. And if she asks for like something that is a big amount, then it's almost like she's a gold digger and she's only getting married for the money. That's not true. A woman gets to decide what her mahr is. It's got nothing to do with her akhlaq. It's got nothing to do with how close she is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I would like to clarify that as well when we're talking about this topic of mahr, to get rid of that ideology that mahr, the number that the woman chooses, has something to do with her character. It's nothing to do with her character. There's so many reasons why a woman chooses the number that she wants, or the figure or the amount that she wants for her mahr going forward. For example, there's so many things that we need to look at. Her status, the family she comes from, the norm in her family background, what the women in her family normally ask for. We also need to take into consideration what the man's status is, what he can financially afford. Is he working? Is how old he is? Because sometimes we want to make marriage difficult. We have young people who want to do a sunnah by getting married so that they can protect themselves from haram. And then this huge number is put on the son. Like, I want whatever the number is, that's for her to decide. And then it's something that he can't afford. And we've made the marriage very burdensome. And we've made this a thing that he can't afford. And then he has to work so hard that he becomes resentful to her. He goes into debt trying to give this to her. Then again, this goes against the Quran, where it says that give it with goodness, give it with a good heart. So again, it's very important to see the status of the man and the woman, what he can afford, if he can't afford to give her that mahr, then that doesn't necessarily mean that she has to say, oh, okay, that's fine, I will ask for something that is very little, and she's not happy with that either. She has to choose something which she is happy with, and something that is agreed upon with the man before marriage. Okay, because sometimes we say that, don't ask for so much, they're going to see you as somebody who's really bad, and then the woman is shying away from what she wants. And then this isn't a great way to start a marriage. This isn't a great way to go into marriage where you're already shying away from your wants. You get to choose. If you're a woman, you get to choose what you want. You get to say that this is what I'm happy with. And it doesn't say anything about your worth as a woman. Please don't get me wrong. This isn't something to say that, I am worth this as a woman, this is why I'm choosing this as my mahr. It's not, because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given you your worth. You're priceless. No man can afford you. It's not something that we say that, a man has to, I'm worth a large number because I'm priceless. No, it's not. Your mahr is simply a gift. It's an honor. It's a token of love and respect from your man. Take it as that. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing less than that. Okay, so when he proposes to her, he should also take into consideration his financial state, and remember that he is asking for that woman. He's asking for the girl. He's going to her family to ask for her. So if you're going to ask for a woman who's from a great, who's from a high status, and then you're not willing to give her what she wants or be able to financially support her, then maybe you should think about saving up, or going about it in a different way. Or if it's going to be burdensome for you from the get-go, then it kind of makes you think that, will you be able to maintain her going forward? Will you be able to provide for her in a way that feels good for her going forward? Because you don't want it to be that you marry a woman and you can't actually provide for her, because that is the right of a woman. After this, I'm talking about mahr, which is before marriage, but even after marriage, if you can't provide for her in a way that makes her feel good, in a way that makes her feel safe and supported, then it's really important that you either work really hard or you find somebody who you can provide for. Okay. Essentially, it's just about what a woman wants. And, as we say, like, if a woman wants to ask for a very small matter, whether it's a couple of pounds or even a penny, that's up to her. That's up to her to decide, because some women just may not necessarily want a huge matter. And that's okay. That doesn't mean she's closer to Allah. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that she is in, it's not something to say that, oh, just because she has asked for a small mahr, that means that she is, mashallah, a very good woman. She's a very pious woman. She's not in love with the dunya. It's nothing like that. There's a number of reasons why a woman can even ask for a large mahr, because maybe she's worried. Maybe she's planning ahead. Maybe she has no other support. Maybe she just wants it. That's okay. There's nothing more to it. The woman gets to choose her mahr, and if the man can give it, that's great. And if he can't give it and he really wants to marry her, then he needs to obviously think about in the sense that I need to give this from a place of goodness. It's a gift to her. If I can't do that for her, then maybe I shouldn't be marrying this woman. But again, like I said, we need to make marriage easy. It's something that we shouldn't see as, we shouldn't make it hard, because in this day and age, marriage has become so hard. We spend thousands on a wedding, on cars and this and that, and marriage has become so hard that it puts people off making something halal into something beautiful and simple, but we make it so difficult for ourselves to get married, and it shouldn't be like that. And especially when we're talking to the elders as well, they make it so difficult by adding culture into everything. The man needs to be like this before he marries, and he has to have this job and have a degree before a great job. He has to secure all this stuff. Okay, that's for the women to decide. It's not, we shouldn't be getting the families involved and saying things like, this is what is required from the woman. She needs to know how to do this and that. Marriage should be easy. It's a beautiful thing. It's only when we complicate things by adding all these things that are not part of Islam into it, as long as the rights are there and the man and woman are happy to marry each other, that should be it. Because at the end of the day, zina has become so normal. It's become so common. Women and men aren't getting married because it's so hard, because they can't approach their parents, and they're worried about the cultural responsibilities that come with it. We need to wake up and make marriage easy, but also stay within the boundaries of Islam and look at what Allah has prescribed for the woman and the man, and go forward with that without overcomplicating things, because we don't want it to be that zina becomes normal. Inshallah, I hope this is an eye-opener for many of us about what mahr is. I'd love for you guys to be a part of the conversation, and I would love for you guys to send your questions in so I can clear up any misunderstandings or answer your questions about the topic of mahr or anything else. Feel free to WhatsApp us on the number that's shown on screen or call in. Look forward to hearing from all of you, and feel free to be a part of this conversation once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to Ask the Alima with me, your host, Alima Naeema. And we were talking about a fantastic topic, mahr, which is something that we all need to know about as Muslim women and Muslim men. So we know what we're getting ourselves into when we are approaching the topic of marriage, the conversations of marriage, and all of that good stuff. So one thing that has come up a lot, as many of you are aware, I do work with women when it comes to marriage. I'm a relationship coach, and there's a lot of issues about the topic of the mahr. Okay, a lot of the times women are saying that she wasn't aware, or the man has said, oh, especially for women who weren't aware of their rights, whether it may have been because she is new to Islam or she just simply wasn't aware. And the man goes in to say to her, and he sugarcoats it and says, oh, the mahr is just a formality. And, it's just something that it can be anything. I can give you, something small like the Quran, or I can just memorize a surah for you, and that can be your mahr. And he sugarcoats it to make it easy for her. Okay. This is why it's so important for women to know their rights. This is why it's so important for women to seek knowledge, because we have men who can ride along on her ignorance and take advantage of that. Unfortunately, astaghfirullah, may Allah forgive these men, and open up their hearts to the women they are going to marry. But this is unfair. This isn't correct. It's not just this formality and something we sugarcoat. Mahr is serious, it's something that the woman it's her right, it's her God-given right. And it's really important to understand that it's not something you can just sugarcoat and say, oh, you can just ask for a small amount. It's not that much of a big deal. I'll just hand you over a tenner and it's all good. No, it's not. Okay, the woman gets to decide what feels good for her, and the husband should give that to her happily. Thought I'd just clarify that one, because a lot of the times this does happen. Unfortunately, it happens, especially if in the case where a woman is new to Islam. And honestly, this is no way to start a marriage, because, mate, you just conned your wife. And if the man is very much aware that this is her right and he doesn't tell her, that is him deceiving her from the get-go. Now imagine trying to build a solid foundation of your marriage on that. So be wary, sisters, if you have men out there trying to sugarcoat what the mahr is and trying to, tell you to take a very small amount, because it's not that important. It is important. Imagine if you are out here listening to this, imagine if that was your daughter and a man done that to her. How would you feel about that? It's really important that we look at this from both sides as well. Okay, and honestly, like I said, this is why it's important to know your rights and seek knowledge. Back in the day, someone would say, oh, no, it's not really important for women to seek knowledge. What's she going to do with that knowledge? She doesn't really need it. She just stays at home and raises a family. No, at the end of the day, a woman has rights and she needs to know them. And it's really important that she goes out there and seeks knowledge, knows her rights as a woman, knows what she's entitled to, so that she can stick her ground, she can teach her daughters, and nobody can take advantage of her. Knowledge is power if we use it in the correct ways. Okay, so some bring up the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they say that there was a man, I'm just going to say it from the top of my head, but in other words, there was a man who said that I cannot afford to give mahr, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that even if it's an iron ring, just give whatever you can, basically. But even that, it shows the importance. People say, oh, I don't really have to give much, I can give something small and that's okay. No, but this hadith, shows the importance of mahr. This man couldn't afford anything. He couldn't afford much at all. But the Prophet ﷺ still said to him, you still need to give something. There's still something that you need to give to her from a place of goodness. Okay, so I want to clarify another thing before we move on from this topic of mahr, that if a husband dies without paying the mahr to his wife, it will be considered as an outstanding debt, and it will be taken out of his inheritance. I want to mention all these points just so that we understand how important mahr is. Also, if a man and woman does, if he does divorce his wife, she does not need to give that mahr back to him. That is for her to keep. That was a gift that was given at the time of marriage, and she does not need to give that back to her. Okay, similarly, it is also, you should talk about what the mahr should be beforehand, so it takes out any misunderstandings, any miscommunications on the day, because a lot of the time then we go in on the wedding day, on the day of the nikah, and then we're like confused about what the mahr is. Really important to have these important conversations from beforehand. And obviously there is, as many of you are aware, there is the mahr fatimi, which is the sunnah amount that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's daughter asked for. But again, and that is it's based on, there is a difference in opinion, but the amount of mahr is 480 dirhams, although there is a difference in opinion on that, and one would calculate the price of 1,469.60 grams of silver on the day of marriage, and that does change because obviously the price of silver does change. And even if a woman asks for something very small, like she's not so bothered about what the mahr is, and she asks for a penny, then that's up to her. She can ask for that. Again, that's nothing to do with how pious she is as a woman, or what her connection with Allah is like, or if she's a gold digger or not, or she doesn't care about the dunya. It's simply something that the woman wants. Okay, that is all. It's not about her worth. It's not about her piety. It's simply something that the woman wants, and the husband should give to her from goodness. Okay, so that is all about before the marriage, talking about the mahr. I want to go on and talk about after marriage. Okay, after marriage, what should a woman receive? A woman should receive accommodation from her partner, from her spouse, her husband. She should receive money, spending money, something that she can spend on. And again, he should provide for her, keep her safe, make her feel like she's safe with him, security, all of those things. But I want to get into them one at a time, just to iron out any misunderstandings, because unfortunately culture gets so mixed up with these conversations, and it becomes so sticky, and we can't no longer distinguish between what is culture, what is Islam, and the two become so intertwined. And then we look into this from a cultural perspective, seeing it as, okay, this is what Islam teaches, when in fact Islam doesn't teach any of these things that we sometimes hear. Okay, so a woman receives accommodation from her partner. The one thing that always comes to mind when people talk about accommodation: so does that mean I don't have to live with my in-laws when I get married? Okay, no, you have the right of, living without her. That is your right. Okay, without living with your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or whoever it is, or extended family members. But again, we need to look at the situation. Okay, because imagine if you want to marry and your partner cannot afford to give you accommodation, and this is what he can afford right now, or maybe he's saving up for accommodation. Do you really want to make marriage hard for yourself? If it's something that you don't want, you can let them aware of that from the get-go. You don't need to live with him, you don't need to live with his family again. But also, if you are going to live with his family, make sure it's coming from a place of goodness, because you don't want to go in there feeling resentful. You should let them know from the beginning. Don't shy away from what you feel, don't shy away from what you want, because accommodation is your right. If you're okay with that and you're okay living with his family, then by all means go ahead and do that. That's okay. And he should try. I am a firm believer that a woman and her husband should have a place of their own, because they can build a healthy foundation without the interference of other family members. They can have a good relationship without people being involved in their relationship. But if it's not possible because of, housing is expensive, it's not something that is cheap, and it's something that it differs from person to person. If your husband cannot afford it, and there is that option of living with his parents or whatever it is, they're good people, then there's no harm in that. Again, we need to have akhlaq when it comes to these things as well. Because at the end of the day, these people if you're going to be living with his parents, that's his parents at the end of the day. We can make things work as well, but if it's something that's not for you, that's absolutely fine. You need to let them know from the get-go, rather than going in and living with your partner in his parents' home and feeling bitter about it. So it is, like I said, it is your right. But when we are going in and living with your in-laws, you can't be saying things like, oh, I didn't want to be here in the first place, if you agreed to it. If you agreed to it, yes, it's your right, but you still have to have akhlaq. You don't, like women say, well, it's not my right to cook and clean. I don't need to do that for you. Again, it's manners. It's not the fact that Allah's told you that you have to cook and clean. Here we need to differentiate between what is good manners and what is your right. No, you don't have to do that. But why wouldn't you want to do that? If you're marrying this person, then why would you not want to cook for him? If that feels good for you, and why not? If he's out there working all day for you, then why not cook for him? If you're working too, then this is something that you can figure out together. It's not that deep. We don't need to see everything as, oh, but Allah didn't say I need to do this. At the end of the day, we don't need to see everything from a place of what is my right when it comes to marriage, because a marriage is built on love, compassion, understanding, and then we have the rights that are there to protect us as well. So it's really important that we have good akhlaq when going into a marriage, instead of saying that, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't, this doesn't, Allah doesn't say I need to do this. This isn't very Islamic. But having a good akhlaq is very Islamic at the end of the day. Okay, so it's really important to understand what your situation is. And if it's something that you want clarity on before, then you need to have these conversations with your potential spouse as to where you stand in a marriage and what kind of situation you're going to be getting into. Because if cooking and cleaning is not your thing, then, you're going to have to marry a man who can probably afford to get you a cleaner or a cook. But if it is that your husband, is his duty to provide for you, look, at the end of the day, ladies, it is your husband's duty to provide for you, which means that he possibly will be out of the home working, and it will be that he will have to maybe be out there. And then that leaves, if you're out there working as well, that's absolutely fine. But again, that is something that is up to you to decide whether you work or not. If you want to do it as a means of sadaqah to help him out, that's absolutely fine. You'll get rewarded for that, but you don't need to do that. Again, Like, if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. And when we, sometimes women say, oh, to the partner, that I have been cooking all day and he has no compassion for her. Again, this is akhlaq, which I will mention again in the next part. I will talk about having akhlaq in marriage, because sometimes we look so much into the rights that we forget about compassion, understanding, and all these other things which are so simple, but we overcomplicate it and we bring Islam into it when it actually wasn't very complicated in the first place. And we talk about it that, oh, Islam says this and Islam says that, when in fact Islam just says, be good to each other, treat her with goodness. That is all. So inshallah, I will be speaking about this more. And if you do have any questions about this, I will be speaking about it after the break, inshallah. Again, if you do have any questions, there has been a few questions in the previous episodes about what to expect from a husband and a wife and the questions you should ask. So I will be clarifying that after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back. Bismillah. So we were talking just before the break about the rights of a woman after she marries. So we were talking about accommodation, and we were talking about her spending on her partner, the cooking, the cleaning, all that stuff that usually goes down, which brings, unfortunately, so many misunderstandings in the marriage. And we talk about it from Islam does not tell me that I need to do this. And we forget that it also comes with basic manners, learning how to live with people, learning how to communicate with people. Okay. So obviously, as we know, not every marriage is going to be the same. Sometimes there will be situations where the husband cannot afford certain things and the woman wants nice things. So where do we stand on this? The woman wants nice things. The woman wants to go on holidays. The woman wants to buy nice handbags and he can't afford it. Does he have to provide this for her? No, he doesn't. As long as he providing the necessities and he is providing for her food, shelter, accommodation, and what he can afford, then he's good to go, But however, a woman should also understand that her husband is, he could only provide what he can provide, right? And anything on top of that is a sadaqah. Because a lot of the times I hear that women say that my husband doesn't even do this with me. That it was a sadaqah, it wasn't your right. However, if he does that, we should be very gracious. We should graciously receive from our partners what they can give. Okay. And also miserliness, if the husband can afford that, but he's being miserly or he's being stingy, that is something that he needs to take up with his Allah. That is something that he is lacking in. And we can, speak to your partner about these kind of situations, how it's making you feel, what he can afford. Understanding what your partner can and can't afford is a very good thing to know in a marriage. Because sometimes women just don't know what their partner can afford and they go on to spend and spend and spend, and then the husband ends up in debt and he feels very bitter towards her, and it causes lots of issues going forward, and they raise a family, and it's just a whole marriage built on miscommunication. So again, whatever the partner gives to the wife, which is beyond the necessities, that is a sadaqah. And what the woman gives to the husband, whatever it is, imagine if the woman goes out to work and she also brings money into the home and she provides to the family, that is all a sadaqah, because a woman does not need to do that. She is not required to do that. So anything a woman does, and there's no harm in a woman going having money of her own, as long as she's earning it in a halal way, in a way that is good, respectful, in a way that she's not going out and free mixing with men and doing anything haram. That's fine. She can bring money home. She's allowed to earn money, as long as the husband is okay with that and he's happy with that. Because at the end of the day, we do need to respect our husband's wishes. If he's not okay with that, that's something that, again, should be discussed before marriage. It's really important to have these conversations. But if he's happy for her to do that, there's no harm in doing that. I was speaking before the break about cooking and cleaning, which is something that a lot of women like to ask Do I have to do this? Do I have to cook for my partner? Again, it's nothing to do with Islam. Yes, Allah didn't say that you need to stay in the kitchen and cook for your husband, but again, it's learning how to live with another person, understanding how you can create this balance in your home. This is where the magic is at. This is where we create this healthy relationship where we understand that there's a balance there. If one is going out to work, then one should hold back the fort. One should look after the home, and usually the woman is better at that. I'm not going to pretend, because I know some people say that no, the man equally should be looking after the home and cooking and cleaning. Fine, by all means, but at the end of the day, it's his Islamic duty to go out and provide for the woman, and a woman is naturally a better nurturer. Naturally, she is that. Within her, she is a nurturer. Okay, so it makes sense for the woman to be raising the children whilst the man is at work. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, especially in this modern day society. Women don't like to hear that the man doesn't need to have he doesn't need to be stepping up equally as much for the children, because at the end of the day, that wasn't his duty. It wasn't his duty to sit at home and raise the children while you go out to work. It was his duty to provide for you. A man feels good to provide for a woman. It feels good for him to do that. He should be doing that. Okay, but when it's out of balance, when a relationship is out of balance, and the woman then says, "No, you sit at home and I'll go provide, and you raise the children," things come out of balance. This is why we have so many issues, because we have this whole culture, this modern day society saying that men should be at home and women should be working, and this is okay. It can be like this. We can make it work. But then guess what happens? Women become resentful because, I have a long day at work and then I have to come home and look after my children. And we have these conversations. If you can do it, that's great. If you can't do it, you need to check in with yourself and say, I can't do this. This doesn't feel good for me. Because most of the times women are meant to be the receivers. We are meant to be in the state of receiving, because unfortunately, when we're not receiving, when we're not being provided for, and we want to take on that role as the man in the house, then we actually end up becoming very bitter over time. And I've noticed this. And this comes from me working with women, working with couples for a long time, working with them. And the women who generally are the ones who say, "Oh no, I can handle it. I can go out to work and I can look after my children. I can do everything. I don't need my partner to do anything for me." This is when things come out of balance. And then she actually says that she ends up being resentful because she's doing too much. The woman's job was to relax and raise the family. And yes, raising the family is very hard work, but she was meant to be provided for. Okay. So I know there'll be times where we hear this being thrown around, where say that, no, women can do just as good as a job as man. But if Allah's honored you to say that you will be looked after, if you're in your dad's home, your dad has to provide for you. If you get married, your husband has to provide for you. Take that as an honor. Sometimes we don't want to hear that because we want to be very independent and say, I don't need a man. But the truth is, Allah has given you that as an honor. Why do you want to say to Allah that, no, I don't need this, if Allah has given you that? So it's really important that we have these conversations. We're on the same bandwidth with our partner before marriage. Okay. And I always speak about this, and I say, before marriage, we should ask these questions. What do you want from me? Are you okay with this from me? This is my idea of what a relationship should look like. Otherwise, we go in with all these expectations, and then we are setting ourselves up for disappointment, because the husband doesn't understand where you're coming from, your partner doesn't understand where you're coming from, and you have two complete different visions. If you are a woman who has a career that she wants to go forward with, then have that conversation with him. I'm not saying that you need to put everything aside to raise a family. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying have these conversations with your partner before marriage, because we feel like, no, everyone understands, like, my way is the correct way, and everyone should understand that because it just makes sense. Unfortunately, this is where the problem is at, because we believe that the other person should just know. They should just know how we feel about any situation. They should just know how we feel about living with in-laws, or they should just know how we feel about never getting our own place. No, we need to have these important conversations to save ourselves from the trouble and misunderstandings of later on that come down the line. Talking about, again, before the break, I was talking about living with in-laws. A lot of people, a lot of women come and they say that, this is not for me. I feel like I cannot do this. And the husband just doesn't agree. And he says that, no, I can't not live with my parents. I do believe, at the end of the day, when a man marries a wife, he should understand that the woman is allowed her own accommodation. That is her right. That doesn't mean you're less of a son by giving your wife her own accommodation. That doesn't mean you're a bad son, because at the end of the day, your mother or your father, your parents, and it's upon you to ensure that you're giving everyone their rights. Your parents deserve the rights. They should see you. You should be taking care of them, especially if they're in old age. You should be making sure that you go out your way. And as the wife, you should ensure that you're taking care of your husband's parents as well. That is just good akhlaq. If it means that you both come up with with something that works for you, and you're living close to them so that your partner can look after him, you should be encouraging that. You shouldn't be saying to him that, no, I want to live as far away from them as possible. We need to strike balance. I think the really important thing here is that we're striking a balance in our lives with the people that are important to us. We're not selfish, because when we marry, it's there so that we complete each other, half the deen for the other person. We bring them peace and comfort instead of driving a wedge between families and being selfish in what we want. We should also push for that, because that is where Allah puts barakah. When you're considerate to your partner and you push him to have good ties, and the other way around as well. If you're a man and you're listening to this, you should encourage your wife to spend time with her mother, the father, to do the khidmah of the parents and to take care of her parents as well. You should be doing that as well, because at the end of the day, you need to step up for each other. You need to encourage each other to have great ties of kinship. This is something that Allah mentions in the Quran, that, we should look after and make sure that we keep good ties with our family, with our relationship, because this is where we open up the doors to barakah in our lives. And this is what we need to understand. It's not about, I marry this woman or this man and all of a sudden he's mine. And I need all of him, because at the end of the day, yes, he may be your husband or she may be your wife, but he's still a son and she's still a daughter. He's still a brother and she's still a sister, So we need to understand that when we marry someone, we don't have full ownership over them as well. We fulfill each other's rights. We encourage each other to do good. We encourage each other to become closer to Allah, and we encourage each other to look after our family members. I know this is a sticky one, and everybody's relationship is very different. Not every relationship is the same. We're dealing with, the reality is we're dealing with toxic family members, we're dealing with controlling parents, we're dealing with interfering in-laws, we're dealing with all that. And inshallah, all in good time, we'll talk about these topics and what's the best way to go about them, because these are topics and situations that I'm dealing with women who are going through these kind of situations on a daily. And it's really important that we understand how we should move forward in these kind of situations. It doesn't mean that we think that, oh, this person isn't for me because he comes with, we learn to navigate these situations and also stay hopeful. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah eases your situation and places barakah in your life and constantly opens up doors for you so that you both can move forward as a couple. But again, like I said, if you aren't married, these are the kind of questions you should be asking about going into the marriage, what to expect, what kind of things you want from the marriage. Inshallah, I will be speaking about this more after the break, so do tune in after the break. And if you do have any questions, feel free to WhatsApp us on the number that is shown on screen. I look forward to hearing from you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we have a question from one of our viewers. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and sending in your questions. It's always so lovely to hear from you all. Bismillah. So this lovely sister mentions that what is a good gift? What is a good, beautiful gift for nikah and the topic? And whilst talking about the topic of mahr, like I said, a gift is a gift from the spouse, but when specifically talking about the mahr, this is something that the wife gets to choose. Okay, so as we know that when we're getting married, many people do this. It's lovely, and giving gifts is a sunnah. It's a great way to build love as well. Giving gifts creates love. It creates there's blessings when you give gifts. When there's giving gifts and there's giving the mahr. Okay, yes, the mahr is a gift from the partner to the wife. It's something that she gets to choose. Okay, so that could be literally anything. Usually it's something like money or jewelry or something of value. But again, that's up to you to decide what it is. You get to choose whatever that is for you, whatever feels good for you. That's something that you get to choose. However, the other gifts that are given at the time of marriage, whatever they are, whatever the families want to give, that's absolutely fine. But again, like I do want to stress on this, that it shouldn't be something that there's pressure to give. Because in some cultures, they rock up and say that, I want my whole house furnished before you come into the house. I want an extension and my garden doing and all these kind of things. And it's kind of like, I feel like it kind of gets rid of the feeling of goodness that comes behind giving gifts. So it's really important to have the intention that it's a way to create love and not as a burden, because again, this can cause, unfortunately, we have these situations that arise in so many cultures, so many stories of these kind of situations every day, and it creates a very rocky start for the couple. So I think it's really important, not just for the husband and wife to hear this, but also the parents and the family, the extended family of the husband and wife, to just, back off a little bit when it comes to the talks of marriage. Like, there's no need to ask for so much, because this can also drive a wedge between the couple when getting married, unfortunately. There's been so many cases like this. And I do hope and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these things do change over time, that we're not making marriage hard, because marriage was meant to be simple. It was meant to be beautiful. And just like the sister said, and she shared her insight saying that marriage, the Islamic marriage without culture is very beautiful. Simple and beautiful. Yes, 100%. I agree with you there. Islam has made marriage beautiful. Allah says that, you're meant to be the coolness of each other's eyes. You're meant to find peace and comfort within each other. Not that we go into this marriage and it's like, oh God, we have debt and you have family issues already because of what went down at the engagement, or what went down with the expectations of the wedding. It's a horrible way to start a marriage. I have women saying to me all the time that that they got married and they can't stop thinking about the way he was angry with her at the time of the wedding because of what she had asked for, what her family had asked for. Astaghfirullah, we need to take a step back and think that, what is a marriage? What is it meant to do for us? It is meant to bring us closer to Allah. We're meant to be assisting your partner's journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a marriage is a blessing on earth. That relationship that you have with your spouse is something that it's like a taste of Jannah in this world. Yet we make it sometimes like a living hell for each other by having all these crazy expectations there. Keep it simple. That's the best thing, honestly. Just keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so I also have a question saying, what's a good age to get married? There's no good age to get married. You get married whenever you feel like marriage is for you. I personally wouldn't say that there's an age for it. However, I would say that before marriage, one should ensure that they are working on themselves, that they are working on bettering themselves constantly. Because I do want to touch upon this, actually. It's a really important one. And I think that we should speak about this, because when you get married to somebody, you're bringing into the relationship, and whether you're the wife or the husband, you're bringing in yourself to the relationship. It's really important to see what kind of baggage you're bringing in as well, whether that's emotional baggage, whether that's literal baggage as well. It's really important that we know what we're bringing in, because that does directly impact your spouse. Like, if you're a person who's been through a lot of trauma, for example, you've been through a very difficult time, And then we go into a marriage expecting your partner to deal with it. It's unfair. I know it's hard to hear, but it's unfair. It's really important that we deal with our own self first. We get support that we need for ourselves first. We manage our emotions first. We manage our emotional side of ourselves first, so that we're not going in expecting our partner to relieve this trauma for us, or to heal parts of ourselves for us. That's our responsibility. That's our job. Okay. It's also important to see what kind of thinking you have about marriage. What are the ideas you have about marriage? What does marriage mean to you? How are you planning on working on yourself even after marriage? Because, working on yourself doesn't ever end. And, I'm not saying that you have to be this perfect being before marriage, but I am saying that it's really important that you are on some sort of betterment journey, some sort of growth journey. Because why wouldn't you want to do that? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be giving yourself to another person so that they can benefit from you. They can find peace and comfort within yourself. Why not give the best version of yourself that you can? Working on, for example, simple things like anger problems. If you're a person who gets angry, work on that before marriage. I wouldn't say there's a specific age that I'll be married by this age, because at the end of the day, I don't believe there should be a number there. I personally got married very young. I got married at the age of 18. It's not for everyone. It worked for me, alhamdulillah. And I see sisters who are getting married at the age of 40. It works for them, alhamdulillah. Whatever feels good for you. There's a person out there. And if you are a brother or a sister who's who feels like they're running out of time, don't feel like that. At the end of the day, your time will come when it's your time. You will find the person. Allah has written a person for you. There's a person out there for everyone. That person will come, inshallah, and you'll find so much happiness and peace within them. Just keep working on yourself, because when you work on yourself, you will attract better as well. Okay, because sometimes we think that, oh wow, imagine if I attracted somebody who was what I wanted 10 years ago, but you've grown since then. So Allah already knows. Allah's already got it all planned out. Don't worry, because I know so many people say, make dua for me, I'm so stressed out, I've been looking to get married and nothing seems to be working out. Relax. Allah's got it all planned out. It's all working out for you. Just keep working on yourself. And let people know that you're looking to get married. Don't be shy, especially if you're a woman. Sometimes people think that, oh, it's so wrong to tell people that, oh, I'm looking to get married, or I really want to marry so and so person. I'm really interested in so and so person. There's no harm in that. At the end of the day, if you look back in our beautiful religion, subhanallah, it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, was the one who proposed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need to get rid of these cultural taboos. I think that, oh no, the woman can't approach the man. It's actually the man that needs to approach the woman. No, if you are a woman who's interested in a man, feel free to let your mahram know. Feel free to let your father know that I'm interested in this person. He seems like a person of good akhlaq. He seems like a person of good character. And get to know people. Speak to people. Don't shy away from speaking to others. Like, I'm not saying go out there and free mix, but I'm saying speak to your family members, telling them that you're interested, ask them to introduce you to people. This is the correct way to do it. Not that things are we marry somebody who our dad thinks is correct for us, or our brothers think like is good for us, and we don't know them at all. It's really important that you tell your family members, introduce me to people, tell extended family members, I'm looking to get married. Let me know if you know anyone. I would love to meet somebody who would help me come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, this is the end goal here. Sometimes we forget that marriage is also a spiritual thing. It's not just this thing that we have, we marry and then we have children and then we have a home together. We build this beautiful life in this dunya together. Always look for somebody who is God-fearing as well, somebody who is connected to Allah, who is working on his spiritual self as well. And also I like to mention that everybody's spiritual journey is very different, respecting that, but also looking for somebody who's on that same sort of journey as you is really important, because we don't want it to be that we're we're marrying someone simply just because they're a good person, and then we realize that after marriage that, oh, hold on a second, they have no understanding of the deen. They have no understanding of what my rights are as a Muslim woman. They have no understanding of how to treat a woman in an Islamically correct way, and that as well can bring a shock to your system. So it's really important to see where they're at in terms of their understanding of the deen as well. And I'm hoping that, and if they don't and they're a good person, encourage them to do that. Go to marriage courses, and we spend thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even on a huge wedding to impress people that don't even matter. Spend some of that money to educate yourself. Go to courses, go to marriage workshops. There's so many resources out there. We can't pretend that nothing's out there anymore. Everywhere you look, if you look properly, there's things out there for you. There's marriage courses, there's marriage workshops, there's self-development workshops, there's all of that stuff. Spend some time on that too, because that is more important than the huge wedding, the hired cars, the fancy venues, and the beautiful stage decor. All that's lovely, but it's not really that important, because after you get married, what's left is the person who you married and their character. And it's really important that you do work on yourself before marriage. It doesn't matter about how old you are when you're getting married, as long as there's some sort of dedication to working on yourself to better yourself. Whether you're married or not, this is important, because at the end of the day, there are people, we can't be selfish. We are not just ourselves as individuals, we live within communities. It's really important that we have good akhlaq, compassion and understanding. And inshallah, this was a great conversation, and I can't wait to speak to you all about so many more important topics next week, same time, Friday, 8:30. Join in with our conversations, and I look forward to hearing from you all, inshallah. Feel free to WhatsApp us on the number on screen. I will be getting back to the messages, and if you have missed part of the episodes, go onto our Facebook page, our Twitter page, catch us on the socials, and do watch whatever you have missed, inshallah. And I will see you all next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Allah, ya Allah.